So this is a short video to explain a bit about the A-type microphone and the Zoom F4 recorder. This is actually a Zoom F8, which is very similar to the Zoom F4, except it has 8 inputs instead of the 4 inputs on the Zoom F4. So I'll start with the microphone. This is an A format microphone. It has 4 separate cardioid directional microphones arranged in a tetrahedral 4-sided pyramid arrangement, and they pick up the entire sound field. So the other word for this is a sound field microphone. The cage on the outside just protects the mics that are in there, and it's called a Reynolds A-Type 4. It has 4 capsules, and it is an A format microphone. The general rule with mics is where the logo is the front of the microphone. So if you can see the logo where the name is on the front of the mic is in line with that. It's halfway between these 2 capsules on the front. So that's the direction you want to point it if you want that to be the front of your sound field. It has a multi-pin connector on the bottom with a little tiny triangle which we will line up with the cable. You can see that little triangle there? So the cable has also got a little triangle on it, if you look very closely. And if you line those 2 triangles up and push them together, they will lock in place. So now I can't pull the connector out. The cable is locked in place unless I pull back this little sleeve here on the plug, which only pulls back a couple of millimeters, but that unlocks the connector and lets you pull the cable out. So that's locked. If I pull from the plastic part, it won't come out. But if I pull from the metal sleeve, it will unlock and let me remove the plug. So that's very important to remember. Don't just keep pulling on it if it won't come out. Make sure you pull back the locking sleeve. So the cable is not a very long cable. It's about 2 meters, which is long enough to get from your microphone up on a stand down to your recorder, which could be on the ground. And it just means it's easy to deal with and not too bulky to carry around. The other end of the cable has 4 separate, what are called XLR connectors, which have 3 pins each, and they are numbered. So if you look very closely at the wires, they are numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, and they are also color-coded red, orange, yellow, green, which are easier to see than the numbers on the wires if you're out in the field. So they plug into inputs 1, 2, 3, and 4 on your recorder. Red goes into 1, orange goes into 2, etc. So if you can see where the little Neutrik logo is on the XLR, that is the up direction. So that will always line up with where the little push button is. So red, orange, yellow, green, 1, 2, 3, 4. These XLRs are locking, so they will be held in place until you press the little push button. So if I hold that button down, it will let me pull the XLR out. Otherwise, they are locked in place and won't pull out when you don't want them to. So we'll deal with the other end of the cable now. First of all, we need a windshield. This is a Rycote BBG, it's called. It comes in 2 halves which lock together and go click when they're locked. These lines line up when they're locked together, and it says lock and a little arrow there. They're quite stiff, so you have to kind of force it a bit. But it has 2 halves. The microphone fits in from the inside. You might have to turn it a bit to get it in there. It's quite a tight fit so that no wind can get through around the bottom. You want it to go all the way down so that the mic sits about halfway down inside the basket, and we put the lid on like this and click. That's sealed in. No wind is able to get in there now. In very high wind conditions, you'll still get some wind sound on the microphones. So if I pop in my connector, sometimes you can just turn it until it finds the right place. But it's maybe easier to find the little triangles, so they can be quite difficult to see if you're in badly lit conditions. So find the little triangles, there's one, there's the other one. You can just leave this plugged in inside the box. So you needn't unplug it or take it out of the windshield, and that might make it easier for you to deal with. So that's plugged in now. The next bit is the shock mount. So you've got a kind of rubbery clip here which goes around the mic. You want to put that on so that you can see the logo on the front. That's how I know that's the front now. It grabs hold of it with its rubbery clip here, and this part is flexible. That means that any vibration that comes into here gets absorbed by these rubbery parts and doesn't get to the microphone. So that is one of the problems with sensitive microphones, is they will pick up absolutely everything. So if I turn this on, you hold down the little power button for a few seconds. It powers up. So this is an F8, which is an 8-channel version of the recorder that you guys have to play with. So you can see on the front screen that my voice is creating a level on these 4 meters on the front. Inputs 1, 2, 3 and 4, and that corresponds to these 1, 2, 3 and 4 here. You have SD card slots on the side where your memory goes in. On the other side you have a headphone socket where you plug your headphones in, and you have a headphone level on the front, which gets quite noisy if you turn it up too high. So watch out for getting more than about halfway. These guys across the front arm the recorder, ready for recording. So when the red lights are on, those tracks are armed. When I click 1, 2, 3 and 4, these red lights come on here, and that means it is now armed for recording. So if I hit record, it starts to count here. Notice this counter is already going, so that starts running as soon as you turn the machine on. That gives your battery level up here, so it should be above 9 volts. My batteries are getting a bit flat. Another thing, these PFL buttons on the front. If you only want to hear that first channel, that will now be sent for the headphones. So when you click PFL, it solos that one channel and sends it to the headphones. If you unclick, it goes back to this page where you can see all the red lights are on and it's recording. So this is really important. These first 4 channels are grouped on group A. So if I click on the menu button and use this little wheel to scroll up and down until we find the input menu, and you click on the wheel to select. So within the input menu, if you scroll up and down, you'll find trim link. If you click on that by again pressing the little wheel in, this is really important. So these first 4 channels are grouped on group A. If I unclick those, all of those channels are now independent. But if I group them together by making them all blue, group A is now controlled by this first knob here. So I can have these 4 down, and this one here is controlling the level of all the others. If you notice, I turn it right up, they're all giving the same sort of level on the meters. If I turn it right down, similarly, there is nothing showing. So that shows that the first knob is controlling all 4 inputs. That's what's called linked gains, or trim link, which is very important, so that these 4 are all at the same level. If they are not the same, then your spatial image gets skewed. So if I click menu, that goes back out of this menu and brings you back to the main page. Then click menu again, and then click input again. Then the next thing is phantom power, which you can see is switched on for the first 4 channels. And if I go back one again, you can see it's set to 48 volts, phantom power, which is the standard voltage to power condenser microphones. So if there is no phantom power, your output level will be very low and the microphone doesn't get powered. And that's about all you need to know really. There are a lot of other functions these Zoom recorders are capable of, but we won't be using most of those. You've got time code and main outputs and a high-res power connector, which is quite handy. But for now, if you can manage the things I've just mentioned, that will set you up for the work that we need to do. The main things are the A-type microphone plugs in on the 4 XLR connectors on the side. The gains have to be trim linked, and if you keep the gain level at about 12 o'clock or vertical, that's usually a good position for most situations. You may need to turn it down if you're recording something very loud, but you shouldn't need to turn it up more than that. So if I hold down the power button for a few seconds, the unit switches off. The battery pack is on the back here. There's a little sled that pulls out which has 8 AA batteries in it. They are rechargeable, but they don't last for very long. So you need to make sure you have some backup batteries around and make sure you are continually recharging. Or if you're inside and you have power available, there's a DC plug-in power point here, which you can plug into the mains. So you've got a 4-channel recorder and a 4-channel microphone, and in general, if you set this up so it's upright or vertical underneath the camera and as close to the camera as you can get, then this is the ears of the 360 recording and the camera is the eyes. The Zoom F4 will be slightly different from this, but largely similar functions. So if you're stuck, there are manuals for these recorders available in many languages, and hopefully this will set you up for the work that you need to do.